The crimson scales of the massive dragon caught the dying sunlight as she landed with earth-shaking force in the center of New Geneva's main square. Citizens scattered like leaves in a hurricane, their screams echoing off the crystalline buildings that housed humanity's first successful colony beyond Earth. Commander Sarah Chen watched from her office window, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma rifle mounted on the wall. The dragon was unlike anything in the databases. Standing nearly 30 meters tall, her wings folded against a body that gleamed like polished rubies. Ancient scars crisscrossed her hide, telling stories of battles fought across the cosmos. But what made Sarah's blood run cold wasn't the dragon's size or obvious power. It was the desperation in her golden eyes. "Commander!" Her aide Marcus burst through the door, his face pale. "The defense grid is online, but she's not attacking. She's just standing there." Sarah grabbed her translation device and headed for the elevator. "Get me a channel to Earth Command. Tell them we have a Code 7 situation." "A Code 7? But that's for first contact with sentient species," Sarah finished. "I know what it means." The elevator descended through the building's core, past residential levels and manufacturing floors, until it reached ground level. The colony's main square stretched before her, usually bustling with merchants and children playing in the fountain. Now it was empty except for the massive dragon who waited with the patience of millennia. Sarah stepped outside, the translation device humming to life. The dragon's head turned toward her, and those ancient eyes focused with an intelligence that made Sarah's breath catch. This wasn't some mindless beast from Earth's legends. This was someone. The dragon's throat rumbled, and the translator crackled with static before producing words in Sarah's native English. "I seek the ones who heal without asking for payment, the ones who save the weak without expecting strength in return." Sarah's heart hammered as she realized the dragon was talking about humanity's medical missions to the outer colonies. Stories of human doctors treating alien refugees had spread throughout this sector, though she'd never imagined word would reach creatures like this. "I am Commander Chen," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the empty square. "Why have you come here?" The dragon lowered her massive head, and Sarah saw something that defied everything she thought she knew about these legendary creatures. Tears. Actual tears were flowing from those golden eyes, each drop the size of Sarah's fist. "My hatchling is dying," the dragon said, her voice breaking despite its thunderous depth. "I have searched every world, consulted every healer across 17 systems. The sickness spreads through her like poison, and I am helpless to stop it." Sarah felt her training kick in, overriding her amazement. "What are her symptoms?" "She burns with fever that no cold can touch. Her scales turn black at the edges and fall away like ash. She cannot hold down food, and her breathing grows weaker each day." The dragon's voice cracked. "She is all I have left, the last of my clutch." The translation device struggled with some of the emotional nuances, but Sarah understood enough. A mother's love transcended species, apparently. She thought of her own daughter back on Earth and felt her chest tighten. "I need to see her," Sarah said. "Can you bring her here?" The dragon shook her massive head. "She is too weak to travel. I have carried her as far as I dare. She rests in the caves beyond your southern mountains, where the air is thin and cold as she prefers." Sarah's mind raced. The southern mountains were barely within the colony's transport range, and the terrain was treacherous. But if there really was a sick child out there, regardless of species, she couldn't turn away. "I'll need to bring medical equipment and a team," she said. "Can you guarantee our safety?" "By the ancient bonds of my people, I swear no harm will come to those who aid my child," the dragon replied formally. "I am Viridiana of the Crimson Flight, daughter of the Star Winds, and my word is iron." Sarah nodded and activated her comm unit. "Marcus, get Dr. Reeves and the emergency medical team ready for a field operation. Full kit, including the portable scanner array. Commander, you can't seriously be considering— That's an order, Sarah cut him off. She looked up at the dragon again. How long until we lose daylight in the mountains? 3 hours by your reckoning, Viridiana answered. But I can carry your people swiftly if they can endure flight. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves arrived 15 minutes later with a team of 4 medics, their faces a mixture of excitement and terror. The elderly physician had seen everything during her 40 years of practice, from plague outbreaks on mining worlds to radiation poisoning from reactor failures. But she'd never treated a dragon. Fascinating, she murmured, running a scanner over Viridiana's outstretched claw. Your physiology shows similarities to both reptilian and avian species, but with some unique characteristics. The bone density alone suggests you evolved on a high-gravity world. My people came from Drakmor, where the mountains touch the sky and the winds sing with the voices of the dead, Viridiana said. But I was born in the void between stars, as my mother fled the great burning. Sarah filed that information away for later. Every piece of intel about these creatures could prove valuable. How far to reach your hatchling? Perhaps an hour of flight, Viridiana said. She lowered herself to the ground, her massive form creating a natural platform. Climb upon my back, but hold tightly. The winds above the mountains are treacherous. The medical team exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Reeves was the first to step forward, her scanner bag slung over her shoulder. Well, I didn't spend 4 decades in space medicine to back down from a house call. One by one, the humans climbed onto Viridiana's back, securing themselves with emergency harnesses normally used for zero-gravity work. Sarah took position directly behind the dragon's massive neck, where she could communicate during flight. With a sound like thunder, Viridiana's wings unfurled and caught the air. The ground fell away beneath them as they rose above the colony's protective dome and soared toward the jagged peaks that marked the southern border of human territory. The flight was both terrifying and magnificent. Below them, the landscape shifted from the ordered agriculture of the colony to wild forests and rocky outcroppings. The air grew thin and cold as they climbed higher, and Sarah found herself grateful for her environmental suit's heating system. There, Viridiana called back to them, her voice barely audible over the wind. The cave of echoing sorrows, where my people have sheltered their young for 10,000 years. The cave opening was massive, easily large enough to accommodate Viridiana's full wingspan, but as they descended into its depths, Sarah saw that it was more than just a shelter. Ancient carvings covered the walls, depicting dragons in flight among the stars. This was a sacred place, she realized, and they were being granted access to something precious. Deep in the cave's heart, they found her. The young dragon was perhaps a quarter of Viridiana's size, but even Sarah could see she was desperately ill. Her scales, which should have been a brilliant emerald green, were indeed turning black at the edges. Her breathing was labored, and when she tried to lift her head as they approached, the effort seemed to exhaust her. My daughter Zephyra, Viridiana said softly, the wind singer, the joy of my heart. She who should have danced among the stars. Dr. Reeves was already unpacking her equipment, her professional demeanor taking over. I'll need to run a full spectrum analysis. The symptoms you described could indicate anything from a viral infection to heavy metal poisoning. As the doctor worked, Sarah found herself studying the relationship between mother and child. Viridiana's massive head rested gently beside her daughter's, and she hummed a low melody that seemed to ease the young dragon's distress. It was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Commander, Dr. Reeves called out, her voice tight with concern. You need to see this. Sarah joined her beside the portable scanner display. The readout showed Zephyra's internal structure in glowing detail, and what she saw made her stomach drop. Dark patches spread through the young dragon's system like a malignant web. "It's not a disease," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "It's poisoning. Something has been systematically destroying her cellular structure from the inside out." "Can you treat it?" Sarah asked. Dr. Reeves shook her head slowly. "The damage is too extensive. Whatever caused this has been working for weeks, maybe months. I'm sorry, Commander, but I don't think there's anything we can do." Behind them, Viridiana's humming stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. "You cannot save her?" the mother dragon asked, her voice small and broken. Dr. Reeves turned to face her, tears in her own eyes. "I wish I could, but the poison has affected too many vital organs. I can make her comfortable, manage her pain, but I can't reverse this level of damage." Viridiana's head sagged until it touched the cave floor. "Then my daughter will join the Star Winds, and I will be alone in the darkness." The despair in her voice hit Sarah like a physical blow. She thought again of her own daughter, safe on Earth, and imagined losing her to something like this. The thought was unbearable. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Dr. Reeves, what exactly is the poison? Can you identify it?" The doctor consulted her scanner again. "It appears to be a synthetic compound, something I've never seen before. The molecular structure is incredibly complex, designed to target specific biological pathways. This isn't natural, Commander. Someone or something deliberately poisoned this child." Viridiana's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with sudden fury. "Impossible! Zephyra has never left this cave. The only food she has eaten came from the valley below, the same fruits and streams my people have used for generations." Sarah felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. "The valley below. Viridiana, is that where you've been hunting for food?" "Yes. The bitter fruits that grow by the silver stream. They have always been safe for my people." "But something's changed recently." "Hasn't it?" Sarah pressed. "New arrivals in the valley, different activity?" Viridiana's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "The metal sky fell 2 seasons ago, the ship that crashed in the valley. I thought nothing of it, as it seemed dead and empty." Dr. Reeves was already pulling up star charts on her tablet. "Commander, we need to investigate that crash site immediately. If it's leaking some kind of toxic compound into the local ecosystem." "Then Zephyra might not be the only victim," Sarah finished. She activated her comm unit. "Marcus, I need you to pull up all satellite data from the southern mountains going back 6 months. Look for any unregistered ship crashes or debris fields." While they waited for the data, Dr. Reeves did what she could to ease Zephyra's suffering. The young dragon accepted the pain medication gratefully, her labored breathing becoming slightly easier. "Marcus here, Commander," the comm crackled. "Found it. Unidentified vessel crashed in grid 77 Alpha about 4 months ago. Initial scans showed no life signs, so we classified it as debris and scheduled it for eventual cleanup." "Did anyone investigate the site?" Sarah asked. "Negative, Commander. It was low priority and we've been focused on the colony expansion." Sarah cursed under her breath. 4 months of some unknown toxin leaking into the environment, and they'd ignored it completely. "Marcus, I need you to contact the Geological Survey team. Have them run soil and water contamination tests for the entire Southern Valley." "Roger that, Commander." Dr. Reeves looked up from her patient. "Even if we can identify and neutralize the source, I'm not sure it will help Zephyra. The damage to her system is severe." "There has to be something," Sarah said desperately. "Some treatment, some technology." "Wait," Dr. Reeves said suddenly. "There is one possibility. Experimental, dangerous, and completely unproven, but—" She pulled up files on her tablet. "There's a researcher on Earth who's been working with cellular regeneration technology. Dr. James Mitchell. He's had some success with reversing toxic damage in human subjects, but it requires a complete genetic map of the patient and very specific equipment." Viridiana lifted her head. "What do you need from me?" Genetic samples, detailed scans, everything we can gather about your daughter's biology, Dr. Reeves explained. And even then, the treatment would need to be administered on Earth in a fully equipped medical facility. Then take her there, Viridiana said without hesitation. I will carry her across the void itself if necessary. Dr. Reeves shook her head. I'm sorry, but she's too weak for interstellar travel. The stress alone would kill her. The cave fell silent except for Zephyra's labored breathing. Sarah watched the young dragon struggle and felt her heart breaking. There had to be something they could do. Humanity had spread across the galaxy by refusing to accept the impossible, by finding solutions where none seemed to exist. What if we brought the equipment here? She said suddenly. Dr. Mitchell's regeneration technology. Could it be transported? The machinery alone would fill a cargo ship, Dr. Reeves replied. And it requires a full medical team, a sterile environment, power systems we don't have. It would take months to set up, even if we could get approval from Earth Command. Zephyra doesn't have months, Viridiana said quietly. Sarah felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders. They'd come so far, learned so much, but in the end, they were still helpless. She thought of all the human children her people had saved across the galaxy, and now she couldn't save this one alien child who needed them. That's when her comm unit crackled with an unexpected transmission. Commander Chen, this is Transport 779 requesting permission to land. We have emergency medical supplies and a specialist aboard. Sarah frowned. She hadn't requested any additional personnel. Transport 779, identify your specialist and state your purpose. This is Dr. James Mitchell from the Terra Research Institute, came the reply. I received an emergency transmission about a critical case requiring cellular regeneration therapy. I've brought everything I need. Sarah stared at her comm unit in disbelief. Dr. Mitchell, how did you know about our situation? We haven't filed any official reports yet. Emergency medical networks monitor all colonial communications for biological threats, came the reply. When your team started running contamination scans and researching cellular regeneration, the system flagged it as a potential outbreak scenario. I was already en route to the Centauri system for another case when the alert came through. Dr. Reeves grabbed Sarah's arm. Commander, James Mitchell is the leading expert on toxic cellular damage. If anyone can help Zephyra, it's him. Roger that, Dr. Mitchell, Sarah said into the comm. What do you need from us? A flat area large enough to land a heavy transport and protection from local wildlife while we set up, Mitchell replied. My equipment is portable, but it's still going to take several hours to deploy. Viridiana lifted her massive head. The plateau outside this cave is suitable for landing, and I give you my oath that no creature will disturb your work. Sarah relayed the location to the incoming transport and felt a spark of hope igniting in her chest. Dr. Mitchell's arrival couldn't be coincidence. The timing was too perfect, too fortunate. But she'd learned not to question good luck when lives were at stake. Within an hour, the transport ship's engines could be heard echoing off the mountain walls. The vessel that descended through the evening sky was larger than anything in the colony's fleet, its hull marked with the medical symbols of Earth's humanitarian corps. As it settled onto the rocky plateau with surprising grace, Sarah realized this wasn't just a rescue mission. This was humanity's mobile medical technology at its finest. The cargo bay doors opened to reveal a team of 12 specialists in environmental suits, led by a tall man with graying hair and intense blue eyes. Dr. James Mitchell moved with the confidence of someone who'd spent decades saving lives in impossible situations. Commander Chen, he said, extending a gloved hand. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Doctor, I have to ask again how you knew to come here, Sarah said as they shook hands. Mitchell's expression grew serious. Because this isn't the first case of this particular poison we've encountered. There have been 3 similar incidents in the past year, all involving different alien species, all in systems recently colonized by humans. Dr. Reeves joined them, her face pale. You're saying someone is deliberately targeting alien wildlife? That's exactly what I'm saying, Mitchell replied grimly. We've been tracking the pattern for months. Someone is field testing biological weapons designed to target non-human physiology. Viridiana, who had been listening silently, suddenly roared with rage. The sound echoed off the mountains like thunder, and Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. Who dares poison the young of my people? Mitchell looked up at the massive dragon without fear. That's what we're trying to find out. But first, let's save your daughter. The next several hours were a blur of activity. Mitchell's team unpacked equipment that Sarah had only read about in medical journals. Cellular regeneration chambers, quantum-level scanners, and biosynthesis units that could literally rebuild damaged tissue at the molecular level. It was technology that pushed the boundaries of what humanity had achieved. Deep in the cave, Zephyra's condition continued to deteriorate. The young dragon's breathing had become so labored that each breath seemed like it might be her last. Viridiana stayed beside her constantly, humming ancient songs and whispering words of encouragement. The preliminary scans are complete, Dr. Mitchell announced as his team finished setting up their equipment. The poison is definitely synthetic, and it's designed to target specific genetic markers found in draconic physiology. This wasn't random. Someone wanted to hurt dragons specifically. Can you reverse the damage? Sarah asked. Mitchell studied the readouts on his portable screen. It's going to be touch and go. The poison has affected her respiratory system, nervous system, and digestive tract. We'll need to rebuild cellular structures throughout her body while simultaneously purging the toxin. What are her chances? Viridiana asked quietly. Mitchell looked the mother dragon in the eye. Honestly, 50-50 at best. The damage is extensive. And we've never attempted cellular regeneration on a species this large or with this complex a physiology. Then we begin immediately, Viridiana said. I will not lose her without a fight. The treatment chamber was a marvel of human engineering, expanding to accommodate Zephyra's small but still considerable size. As the young dragon was carefully moved into position, Sarah watched the readings on the medical displays. Every vital sign was weak, every system struggling. Beginning cellular regeneration sequence, Dr. Mitchell announced. This is going to take several hours, and we'll need to monitor her constantly. The chamber filled with a soft blue light as the regeneration field activated. On the screens, Sarah could see the process beginning at the molecular level. Damaged cells were being identified, broken down, and rebuilt according to Zephyra's genetic template. It's working, Dr. Reeves whispered in amazement. Look at the cellular regeneration rate. But then the alarms started sounding. Zephyra's vital signs were spiking, her body rejecting the treatment. She's going into shock, Mitchell called out. Her immune system is fighting the regeneration process. Can you override it? Sarah asked. Not without risking complete system failure, Mitchell replied, his hands flying over the controls. Her physiology is more complex than our models predicted. Viridiana pressed her massive face against the chamber's transparent wall. Zephyra, my little star dancer, you must fight. You must be strong. The young dragon's eyes fluttered open at her mother's voice. She tried to respond, but could only manage a weak chirp. Wait, Dr. Reeves said suddenly. The humming. Viridiana, when you hum to her, her vital signs stabilize. There's something about the frequency that calms her nervous system. The song healing of my people, Viridiana explained. It is how we comfort the sick and wounded, but I did not think it would work with your human machines. Everything is connected, Mitchell said with growing excitement. Commander, we need to integrate the dragon's own healing methods with our technology. Dr. Reeves, can you analyze the frequency of Viridiana's humming? For the next hour, they worked together in a way that defied every protocol Sarah had ever learned. Human technology and ancient dragon wisdom combined as Viridiana sang the healing songs of her people while the regeneration chamber rebuilt her daughter's damaged cells. Slowly, impossibly, it began to work. The black edges of Zephyr's scales faded back to healthy green. Her breathing became stronger and more regular. The monitors showed damaged organs beginning to function normally again. "She's responding beautifully," Dr. Mitchell said with barely contained excitement. "The combination of cellular regeneration and acoustic therapy is more effective than anything I've ever seen." But just as hope was beginning to flourish, Sarah's comm unit crackled with an urgent transmission from the colony. "Commander Chen, this is Marcus. We have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up an incoming ship, unidentified configuration. They're on a direct course for your location." Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. "ETA? 30 minutes, maybe less. Commander, their flight path suggests they've been monitoring our communications." Dr. Mitchell looked up from his equipment. "How long until the treatment is complete?" "At least another hour," Dr. Mitchell replied. "Maybe 2 if we encounter complications." Viridiana's eyes blazed with protective fury. "No one will harm my daughter while she heals. I will stop them." "Viridiana, wait!" Sarah called out as the dragon started toward the cave entrance. "We don't know who they are or what they want." "I know what they want," Viridiana growled. "They come to finish what their poison started, but they will find the mother of dragons waiting for them." Sarah activated her comm unit. "Marcus, scramble our defense squadron and patch me through to the incoming vessel." "Roger that, Commander." A new voice came through the comm, cold and mechanical. "Colonial vessel, this is research ship Prometheus. We are conducting a biological survey of this system. Withdraw your personnel immediately." "This is Commander Chen of the New Geneva colony," Sarah replied. "You are entering restricted airspace. State your intentions." "Our intentions are none of your concern, human. We claim this territory by right of scientific priority." Sarah frowned. The voice was definitely artificial, some kind of translation system, but the underlying language patterns were unfamiliar, not matching any of the known alien species in this sector. "Unknown vessel, you are ordered to alter course immediately or face defensive action." "Your threats are meaningless," came the reply. "We have business in these mountains that predates your arrival." Dr. Mitchell grabbed Sarah's arm. "Commander, that ship, I think it belongs to whoever's been spreading the poison. They're coming to collect data on their weapons' effectiveness." The truth hit Sarah like a sledgehammer. Zephyra wasn't just a random victim. She was a test subject, deliberately poisoned so these unknown beings could study the effects of their biological weapon. "Viridiana," she called out urgently, "how many other young dragons are there in this region?" The mother dragon's expression grew deadly serious. "3 other clutches nest in the neighboring valleys. If the poison has spread, then dozens of children could be dying," Sarah finished. "We need to warn them." But before Viridiana could respond, the cave shook as something massive landed on the plateau outside. Through the entrance, Sarah could see the silhouette of a ship unlike anything in human databases. Its hull was smooth and organic-looking, more grown than built. "Fascinating," a new voice echoed from the cave entrance. "The primitives have actually managed to interfere with our experiment." 3 figures entered the cave, and Sarah's breath caught. They were humanoid, but wrong somehow, their proportions slightly off, their movements too fluid. Their skin had a grayish cast, and their eyes were large and completely black. "The Zephyrians," Dr. Mitchell whispered. "They're supposed to be extinct." "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated," the lead figure said with what might have been amusement. though the same cannot be said for the dragon species once we perfect our bioweapon. Viridiana positioned herself between the intruders and her daughter's treatment chamber. You will not touch her. The specimen has already served its purpose, the Zephyrian replied dismissively. We have gathered sufficient data on the weapon's effectiveness, though we admit to curiosity about your human intervention. You're using children as test subjects, Sarah said, her voice tight with rage. We are ensuring the survival of our species, the Zephyrian corrected. The dragons pose a threat to our expansion plans, as do humans, incidentally. One of the other Zephyrians was studying the medical equipment with obvious interest. Their technology is more advanced than anticipated. This could prove useful. Indeed, the leader agreed. Capture the medical personnel and their equipment. Eliminate the dragons. That was when Viridiana's patience finally ran out. With a roar that shook the entire mountain, she launched herself at the intruders. The lead Zephyrian barely had time to raise some kind of energy weapon before 30 tons of furious dragon mother crashed down on them. The battle was brief and brutal. The Zephyrians' weapons were designed for long-range extermination, not close combat with an enraged dragon. Within seconds, 2 of them were down, and the third was fleeing toward the cave entrance. Stop him, Dr. Mitchell shouted. If he reports back, they'll send a full military force. But the Zephyrian was already activating some kind of personal transport device. Sarah raised her plasma rifle and fired, but the energy bolt passed harmlessly through empty air as their enemy vanished. They know where we are, Sarah said grimly, and now they know we can interfere with their bioweapon. Dr. Mitchell was already checking on Zephyra's treatment. The chamber maintained stability throughout the fight. She's still responding well to the therapy. How much longer? Viridiana asked, her scales still glowing with battle fury. 40 minutes, maybe less, Mitchell replied. But, Commander, we need to evacuate the area. When that Zephyrian reports back... No, Viridiana said firmly. I will not move my daughter while she is healing. If they return, let them come. They will find that 1 dragon can guard these mountains better than 100 human soldiers. Sarah activated her comm unit. Marcus, contact Earth Command immediately. Priority 1. We have confirmation of hostile alien activity and deployment of biological weapons. Request immediate military support. Roger, Commander. But the nearest fleet is 3 days out. Then we hold these mountains for 3 days, Sarah replied. Viridiana, how quickly can you contact the other dragon families in the area? The song calling carries far in these peaks, she replied. They will know of the danger within the hour. And they'll come to help? Viridiana's eyes gleamed. Someone has threatened the young of our kind. Every adult dragon within 100 parsecs will answer that call. As if to punctuate her words, a distant roar echoed across the mountains. Then another, and another. The dragons were coming, and they were not pleased. Dr. Mitchell looked up from his equipment. This is either going to be the greatest interspecies alliance in human history or the shortest. Sarah checked her weapons and looked out at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were preparing their response. But for the first time since this crisis began, she felt a spark of confidence. Humanity had always been at its best when fighting to protect the innocent. And now they had allies who could literally breathe fire. The dragons arrived as the sun disappeared behind the western peaks, their massive forms silhouetted against the darkening sky like ancient gods, returning to reclaim their domain. Sarah counted at least a dozen, each one larger and more magnificent than Viridiana. They landed on the surrounding mountainsides with earth-shaking impacts, their eyes glowing in the twilight. The Crimson Flight answers your call, sister, rumbled the largest of them, a massive black dragon with silver markings along his wings. I am Thunderwing, clutch father of the northern peaks. Who dares threaten our young? Viridiana quickly explained the situation, while Dr. Mitchell continued monitoring Zephyra's treatment. The young dragon was responding beautifully to the therapy, her vital signs growing stronger by the hour. But they still needed time, and time was running out. "The star spawn think to exterminate us as they did the keepers of Altair 7, Thunderwing snarled when Viridiana finished her explanation. "They learned nothing from that folly." "You fought the Zephyrians before?" Sarah asked. "Fought them, defeated them, scattered their fleets across the void," replied a deep blue dragon with crystal formations growing from her horns. "I am Frostscale of the Ice Worlds. We drove the Grey Ones from 12 systems before they retreated to the dark spaces beyond the rim." "But that was generations ago," added a bronze dragon whose scales seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "I am Mindforge of the Inner Rings. The star spawn have had centuries to rebuild, to plan their return." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. If the Zephyrians had been planning this for generations, then humanity had stumbled into something far larger and more dangerous than anyone had realized. "How long until your daughter's healing is complete?" Thunderwing asked Viridiana. "Perhaps 20 minutes more," she replied, her gaze never leaving the treatment chamber where Zephyra's small form was bathed in healing light. "Then we make our stand here," Thunderwing declared. "Ring formation around the cave. If the Grey Ones want the young one, they will have to go through all of us." The dragons moved with practiced efficiency, taking positions on the mountainsides that gave them clear fields of fire and overlapping coverage. Sarah realized she was witnessing something remarkable. These weren't just individual creatures defending a child. This was a military unit with centuries of combat experience. "Commander," Dr. Mitchell called out urgently, "long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts approaching from deep space. Large ships, at least a dozen of them." Sarah's heart sank. A dozen ships could carry thousands of Zephyrian troops, more than enough to overwhelm even this many dragons. "ETA? 40 minutes at current approach speed. The healing will be complete in 20 minutes, Dr. Mitchell reported. But Zephyra will need at least another hour to fully stabilize before she can be moved." "Then we buy that time," Sarah said grimly. She activated her comm unit. "Marcus, what's the status on reinforcements?" "Earth fleet is still 2 days out, but Admiral Harrison is diverting 3 cruiser squadrons from the Centauri patrol. They'll be here in 18 hours. 18 hours. They needed to hold against a Zephyrian battle fleet for 18 hours with a handful of human soldiers and a dozen dragons. The odds were not encouraging. "There is another option," Frostscale said quietly. "The humans could evacuate while we dragons draw the enemy away. We are old, and we have lived full lives. The young one has barely begun hers." "No," Sarah said immediately. "We don't abandon allies, and we don't sacrifice lives unnecessarily. We find a way to win." Thunderwing's massive head turned toward her, his ancient eyes studying her with new interest. "You would fight beside us, knowing you cannot win?" "We would fight beside you because it's the right thing to do," Sarah replied. "That's what humans do." A sound like distant thunder rippled through the dragon ranks. Sarah realized after a moment that they were laughing. "Now I understand why the young ones speak so highly of your species," Mindforge rumbled. "Very well, human warrior. How do you propose we hold these mountains?" Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like never before. She was being asked to coordinate a defense involving species she'd never imagined existed until today. But as she looked around at the assembled dragons, she realized they were waiting for her leadership. "First, we need intelligence," she said. "Frostscale, you mentioned driving the Zephyrians from 12 systems. What are their tactical preferences?" "They rely on long-range bombardment and biological weapons," the Ice Dragon replied. "They prefer to avoid direct combat, wearing down enemies from a distance, but they are vulnerable to close engagement. Their ships are heavily armored but slow to maneuver," added Mindforge. If you can get past their defensive screens, their hulls are surprisingly fragile. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. Dr. Mitchell, how much longer until the treatment chamber can be made portable? It's designed for field deployment, he replied. Give me 10 minutes and I can have it reconfigured for transport. Do it, Sarah ordered. Then she turned to the dragons. Thunderwing, how fast can your people fly with passengers? Faster than any star-spawn ship can follow in an atmosphere, he replied with pride. But we cannot outrun them in the void. We don't need to outrun them, Sarah said, her plan crystallizing. We need to lead them into a trap. How well do you know the asteroid fields in this system's outer ring? Frostscale's crystalline horns began to glow. The maze of broken worlds? We have hunted there since the first days of our exile. Every asteroid, every drift current, every gravitational anomaly. Perfect, Sarah said. Here's what we're going to do. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Mitchell's team worked frantically to reconfigure their equipment while Sarah coordinated with both her colonial forces and the Dragon Flight leaders. It was the most complex operation she'd ever planned, requiring perfect timing and absolute trust between species that had never worked together before. Treatment complete, Dr. Mitchell announced as Zephyra's eyes fluttered open. The young dragon looked around weakly, but her breathing was steady and her scales had returned to their brilliant green color. My star dancer, Viridiana whispered, nuzzling her daughter gently. How do you feel? Hungry, Zephyra chirped in a voice like wind chimes. And confused. Why are there so many others here? Old friends who came to help, Viridiana replied diplomatically. Commander, Marcus's voice crackled through the comm. Enemy fleet has entered the outer system. They're moving fast. All units, initiate Operation Dragon's Gambit, Sarah ordered. The plan went into motion with clockwork precision. The dragons spread out across the mountain range, each one carrying human personnel and equipment. Viridiana, with Sarah and Dr. Mitchell's medical team aboard, lifted Zephyra carefully and began the flight toward the system's edge. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet descended on the empty caves like a plague of metal locusts. Sarah watched through long-range sensors as enemy troops deployed, searching for their targets. It would take them precious minutes to realize they'd been led into an abandoned position. Phase 2, Sarah announced as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. The dragons suddenly changed course, scattering in different directions across the solar system. To outside observers, it would look like a panicked retreat, but each dragon was heading to a carefully chosen position in the asteroid field that surrounded the system's outer planets. Enemy fleet is pursuing, reported Mindforge, who was carrying the colony's long-range sensor equipment. They are dividing their forces to follow multiple targets. Perfect, Sarah said, just like we planned. The maze of broken worlds was a graveyard of shattered planets that had been destroyed in some ancient catastrophe. Asteroids the size of moons drifted in complex orbital patterns, creating a three-dimensional labyrinth that only the most skilled pilots could navigate. All dragons execute Phase 3, Sarah ordered. What happened next would be studied in military academies for decades to come. The dragons led their Zephyrian pursuers deep into the asteroid maze, using their intimate knowledge of the field to stay just ahead of the enemy ships. Meanwhile, human forces that had been secretly positioned throughout the field began their own part of the operation. Nuclear mines activated, reported Lieutenant Torres from her position on a hidden asteroid base. Targeting solutions locked. Gravitational disruptors online, added Chief Engineer Patel from another concealed location. The Zephyrians, focused entirely on pursuing their escaping targets, flew directly into the most sophisticated trap in human military history. As their ships spread out through the asteroid field, proximity-triggered nuclear mines began detonating in carefully calculated sequences. But the mines weren't meant to destroy the enemy ships. They were meant to destabilize the gravitational balance of the asteroid field itself. Cascade reaction initiated, Dr. Mitchell reported, monitoring the effects from Viridiana's back. The field is beginning to collapse. Massive asteroids began shifting from their ancient orbits, creating a chaotic maze of moving obstacles that would challenge even experienced pilots. The Zephyrian ships, caught off guard by the sudden change in conditions, found themselves trapped in a deadly game of three-dimensional pinball. "Now!" Sarah ordered. The dragons emerged from their hiding places like ancient gods of war. They moved through the chaos with impossible grace, their natural flight abilities allowing them to navigate conditions that would destroy any mechanical vessel. Each dragon carried human soldiers armed with cutting-edge weapons specifically designed for anti-ship combat. "Remember," Sarah called out as Viridiana dove toward a disabled Zephyrian cruiser, "we're not trying to destroy them all. We just need to capture their command ship and end this war." The battle that followed would be remembered as the day two species truly became allies. Dragons and humans fought side by side, each playing to their unique strengths. The dragons provided mobility and firepower, while the humans provided tactical coordination and technical expertise. "There!" Thunderwing called out, indicating a massive ship at the center of the Zephyrian formation. "That is their command vessel. I can smell the fear of their leader from here." Sarah studied the target through her scope. The ship was heavily defended, surrounded by a screen of smaller vessels that fired everything they had at the approaching dragons. But she could see a weakness in their formation. "Frostscale, Mindforge," she ordered. "Distraction run on their port flank. Draw their fire. Thunderwing, you and Viridiana come in from starboard. I'll board with a strike team." "Sarah," Viridiana said urgently, "you cannot risk yourself. Think of your own young." "I am thinking of her," Sarah replied, "and of Zephyra, and of every child in the galaxy who deserves to grow up in a universe where monsters don't poison the innocent." The assault on the command ship was everything Sarah had been trained for, and nothing she could have prepared for. Fighting in zero gravity while wearing a spacesuit, boarding an alien vessel whose layout defied human logic, facing enemies who had spent centuries perfecting the art of extermination. But she wasn't alone. Dr. Mitchell and his team provided medical support while colonial Marines cleared the corridors with professional efficiency. And outside the ship's hull, dragons circled like guardian angels, ensuring no enemy reinforcements could interfere. They found the Zephyrian commander on what appeared to be the bridge, a tall figure in ornate armor that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. He turned as they entered, his large black eyes reflecting the harsh lighting. "So the primitives come to negotiate," he said in accented English. "What terms do you offer for the lives of your dragon allies?" "No terms," Sarah replied, raising her weapon. "Unconditional surrender. End the poisoning campaigns. Withdraw from all inhabited systems and face judgment for your crimes." The commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You understand nothing, human. We are not invaders. We are exterminators. Your species and the dragons are infections that must be cleansed from the galaxy." "Then you've made a serious error in judgment," Sarah said, "because this infection just developed an immunity." The final confrontation was brief. The Zephyrian commander, for all his arrogance, was no match for human military training and determination. Within minutes, he was in custody, and his fleet was surrendering to a force they had vastly underestimated. As they returned to the planet's surface, Sarah found herself riding beside a fully recovered Zephyra. The young dragon chattered excitedly about everything she had missed, apparently treating the entire experience as a grand adventure. "The humans saved my life," she was telling her mother, "and they fought beside you to protect me. Are they our family now?" Viridiana's golden eyes met Sarah's. "What do you think, human warrior? Are we family?" Sarah thought of her daughter back on Earth and of all the children throughout the galaxy who would now grow up in a safer universe. She thought of the bonds forged in battle and the trust built through shared sacrifice. "Yeah," she said finally, "I think we are." 3 months later, the Treaty of Dragon's Rest established the first formal alliance between humanity and the Dragonflights. The Zephyrian threat had been neutralized, their bioweapons destroyed, and their survivors relocated to a monitored world where they could cause no further harm. Dr. Mitchell's cellular regeneration technology, enhanced by dragon healing songs, became standard medical practice throughout human space. And Zephyra, now fully grown and healthy, served as the first dragon ambassador to Earth, where she charmed diplomats and terrified generals in equal measure. But for Sarah, the real victory was simpler. On quiet evenings in the mountains of New Geneva, she would sometimes hear Viridiana singing to her daughter, the ancient healing songs carrying on the wind. And she would smile, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, a mother and child were safe because humans and dragons had chosen to stand together. It was, she thought, exactly the kind of universe worth fighting for.